This story is called This Table is for Family, they said, but not for me. Then the waiter dropped the $2,200 bill. It wasn't about the money. It was about 25 years of being treated like an outsider, like a ghost at every family event. And it all came to a head over one expensive lunch. My name is Walter, and I'm going to tell you about my niece, Rachel. She's the one who finally showed our entire family that you can only push a person so far before they push back. Let me start from the beginning. Rachel was always the quiet one. Her mom, my sister, passed away when she was just 10, and her dad moved away for work, leaving her with her grandparents. In our big, loud, opinionated family, quiet was mistaken for weak. Different was mistaken for less. She grew up on the fringe of every holiday, every birthday, watching her cousins get the best gifts, the loudest praise, while she was just there. She worked hard, put herself through college, and built a nice little life for herself as a graphic designer. But to the family, she was still little Rachel, the orphan, the one you could overlook. They had no idea how much she saw or how long she had been keeping score. The event that sparked everything was my 70th birthday lunch. My kids, wanting to show off, booked a huge table at the Gilded Vine, one of the fanciest restaurants in the city. They invited everyone, aunts, uncles, cousins, the whole crew. Rachel got the email invite like everyone else. She even texted my daughter, Lisa, to confirm. Lisa just replied with a thumbs-up emoji. The day of the lunch, Rachel arrived right on time. She was wearing a nice dress, her hair done, and she even brought a carefully wrapped gift for me. When she walked into the private dining area, the family was already milling around, loud and laughing. The table was long and beautiful, set for 20 people. But as Rachel went to take an empty seat near the middle, her cousin Stephanie, Lisa's daughter, put a hand on the chair. "Oh, Rachel, sorry," Stephanie said, not sounding sorry at all. "These seats are all saved, for family." She gestured vaguely toward the head of the table where my immediate children and grandkids were sitting. Rachel just stood there, holding her gift. She looked down the table. Every chair had a purse on it or a jacket slung over the back. It was a classic move. Make it look like all the seats are taken. Lisa, my daughter, saw what was happening and called out from her seat at the head of the table. "Rachel, honey, we needed to seat the immediate family together for the speeches. You understand, right? I'm sure there's a nice spot at the bar, or maybe they can set up a small table for you outside on the patio." "It's a lovely day," a few of the other cousins snickered. The patio was next to a busy, smelly alley. Rachel's face went still, the way it does when she's hurt but refuses to show it. She just nodded slowly. "Sure," she said, her voice flat. "No problem." She placed my gift on a side table with the others and turned to walk away. I saw the whole thing from my seat. I started to get up to tell them to make room, but my son, Mark, put a hand on my arm. "Don't make a scene, Dad. It's your birthday, she'll be fine." So I sat back down, a knot in my stomach. I watched her go, and I knew in my old bones that something had just broken. The maitre d', a sharp-eyed man named David, saw Rachel being turned away. He'd seen a lot in his years at fine restaurants. He intercepted her before she reached the main door. "Ma'am, is everything all right?" Rachel gave him a weak smile. "Just a seating mix-up. Do you have room at the bar?" David looked past her to the crowded, laughing table that had just exiled one of their own. He made a decision. "Actually, I have something better. We have our chef's counter. It's a single seat with a direct view into the kitchen. It's quite an experience. And," he added softly, "it's considered one of the best seats in the house." Rachel, grateful for the kindness, agreed. David personally led her to a beautiful polished wood counter facing the open kitchen. A server brought her a menu and a glass of sparkling water. From her new seat, Rachel had a perfect, unobstructed view of the long family table in the main dining room. She could see them all, clinking glasses, completely forgetting about her already. Back at the family table, the celebration was in full swing. Lisa and Mark were ordering bottle after bottle of expensive wine. They commanded the table, telling stories, mostly about themselves. My grandchildren, following their parents' lead, ordered the most expensive items on the menu: Wagyu steaks, lobster tails, truffle pasta. The bill was climbing by the minute. No one gave Rachel a second thought. Out of sight, out of mind. Meanwhile, at the chef's counter, Rachel was having a very different experience. The head chef, noticing a solo diner at his counter, started sending out small tasting portions. A delicate amuse-bouche, a spoonful of exquisite soup. Rachel ordered a modest salad and a main course of salmon. She chatted briefly with the sommelier, who suggested a single, perfect glass of white wine to pair with her meal. She was treated with more respect and attention in that 1 hour than our family had shown her in 2 decades. As the main courses were being cleared at the big table, the waiter began circulating the dessert menu. That's when Lisa, my daughter, had her bright idea. She stood up, tapping her glass for attention. Everyone. For Dad's birthday, let's do a round of premium cognacs. And top-shelf scotch for the gentleman, on us? There were cheers. They ordered a bottle of Louis XIII cognac, which costs more than most people's car payments. They didn't look at the price. They never did. They assumed, as they always had, that things would just work out, that someone else would handle the messy details. Their voices got louder, their laughter more grating. From across the room, Rachel watched it all, sipping her coffee. She had finished her lovely, peaceful meal. She saw the cognac bottle arrive, saw the golden liquid being poured. She knew exactly what that bottle cost. A small, hard smile touched her lips for the first time that day. Finally, the lunch was winding down. People were stuffed and a little drunk. Lisa caught the waiter's eye and made a circular motion with her finger in the air, the universal sign for check, please. She did it with a flourish, like she was the queen granting an audience. The waiter nodded and disappeared. A few minutes later, he returned, but he didn't go to Lisa at the head of the table. He walked right past her. He walked past all the confused, smiling faces. He walked straight through the archway into the quieter section of the restaurant. The family table went silent, heads turning to watch. The waiter stopped at the chef's counter. He placed a long, leather bill folder gently on the polished wood in front of Rachel. "Whenever you're ready, ma'am," he said quietly. Rachel didn't flinch. She simply finished her sip of coffee, placed the cup back in its saucer with a soft clink that echoed in the sudden quiet of the main room. Then, with calm fingers, she opened the bill folder. Back at the family table, you could hear a pin drop. Then Lisa's voice, sharp and confused, cut the air. "Excuse me, waiter, over here." The waiter turned and walked back to them, professional and polite. "Yes, ma'am," Lisa pointed angrily toward Rachel. "Why did you give her the bill?" "We are the party hosting this event. She is not even at our table." The waiter remained calm. "I understand, ma'am. However, the reservation and the credit card on file for the private dining room are under the name Rachel Sullivan. She is the responsible party for the minimum spend and any additional charges." The color drained from Lisa's face. Mark sputtered. "What? That's impossible. I made the reservation." The waiter pulled a small notepad from his pocket. "The reservation was made 2 weeks ago by a Rachel Sullivan. She provided her card details to secure the room, and it's $1,500 minimum. All charges have been authorized on that card." Every head at the table swiveled to look at Rachel. She met their stares, her expression unreadable. I watched this all unfold from my seat. A part of me was horrified, but a bigger, older part of me felt a strange sense of justice. Rachel had done what none of us ever had. She'd called their bluff. Lisa marched over to the chef's counter, her heels clicking angrily on the floor. "Rachel, what is this? What kind of game are you playing?" Rachel looked up, her eyes calm. "No game, Lisa. You invited me to a birthday lunch for Uncle Walter. I made the reservation to ensure we had a nice space. You just never asked how it was booked." She slid the open bill folder across the counter toward Lisa. "Here you go. The total is $2,200, plus gratuity, of course." Lisa looked down at the bill. Her eyes scanned the items, the wagyu, the lobsters, the multiple bottles of wine, the $1,200 cognac. Her face turned from red to white. You expect us to pay this? To you?" Rachel took another slow sip of her coffee. "I've covered the room minimum. That was my gift to Uncle Walter. The rest is for the family who enjoyed the meal." "This table," she said, repeating Lisa's own words back to her with perfect clarity, "was for family." Chaos erupted. Mark joined Lisa, arguing loudly that this was insane, that Rachel was trying to scam them. Their spouses chimed in. My other relatives at the table just looked shocked and embarrassed. The restaurant manager, David, came over. His demeanor was polite but firm. "I can clarify," he said. "Ms. Sullivan is correct. She holds the contract for this event. If the bill is not settled, the charges will remain on her card. We can, of course, split the payment if another method is presented now." But Lisa and Mark were outraged. They refused to pay. They called Rachel selfish, a troublemaker, vindictive. They said she was ruining my birthday. That's when Rachel did the final, beautiful thing. She looked past her screaming cousins, straight at me. She gave me a small, sad, but resolved smile. Then she turned back to the manager. "David, it seems there's some confusion. Could you please reseat my uncle, Walter, here with me? He shouldn't be caught in the middle of this." David immediately came over to me. "Sir, would you like to join your niece?" I didn't hesitate. I got up from the head of that tense, angry table and walked away from my own children. I sat down next to Rachel at the chef's counter. The look on Lisa and Mark's faces was priceless, a mix of betrayal and utter disbelief. Rachel handed me a menu. "They haven't served dessert yet, Uncle Walter. Would you like to see the pastry menu?" I ordered a slice of chocolate cake. We sat there, the two of us, while the rest of the family imploded 10 feet away. It was the best part of my birthday. The manager, David, gave the family table an ultimatum: pay the bill in the next 10 minutes, or he would have to involve security and charge the full amount to Rachel's card, after which it would be a civil matter between them. Panic set in. They didn't have $2,200 in cash between them. Their credit cards were near their limits. Watching them scramble was like watching a silent movie. They were pulling out wallets, whispering fiercely, checking bank apps on their phones. The illusion of wealth and unity was completely shattered. Stephanie, the one who had told Rachel the table was for family, was crying. Finally, humiliated and fuming, they managed to pool their resources. Lisa, as the loudest, was forced to put the entire balance on her own credit card, maxing it out. The waiter processed the payment and brought her copy of the receipt. The moment it was done, the family practically fled the restaurant. They didn't say goodbye to me. They didn't look at Rachel. They just left, a parade of shame and anger. Rachel and I finished our desserts in peaceful quiet. When we were done, she took out her card to pay for our 2 desserts and coffees. David, the manager, shook his head. "On the house. And please," he said, handing Rachel his card, "come back anytime, as my guest." In the days that followed, the family storm raged. My phone blew up. Lisa and Mark called, demanding I condemn Rachel's behavior. They said she had humiliated the entire family. They said I was a bad father for siding with her. For the first time, I didn't try to smooth things over. I told them, "She didn't humiliate you. You did that to yourselves when you told her she wasn't family enough to sit at the table." They hung up on me. Rachel, meanwhile, was calm. She blocked a few numbers, but she didn't gloat. She just went on with her life. She had made her point. The $2,200 wasn't the goal, it was a consequence. The goal was to make them see her, finally, and to make herself finally see the truth. She didn't need their approval to have value. About a week later, I invited Rachel over to my house for a proper birthday dinner, just the two of us. She brought a homemade apple pie. Over dinner, she told me everything. The years of being left out of vacation plans, of getting cheap, thoughtless gifts while her cousins got cars and expensive trips, of every holiday conversation that talked around her as if she weren't there. "I used to think if I was just quieter, more helpful, more generous, they'd let me in," she said. But the lunch. Telling me to sit outside? That was the final proof. I was never going to be in, so I decided to stop trying to buy my way in. She had planned it simply. She'd made the reservation herself when she got the vague invite, ensuring control. She'd guessed exactly how they would behave, ordering the most expensive things, showing off. She was ready. The fallout spread to the wider family. Aunts and uncles took sides. Some called Rachel greedy. A few, surprisingly, secretly called her to say, "Good for you." They'd seen the favoritism for years but never spoke up. The family WhatsApp group, usually full of mindless chatter and fake smiles, became a war zone. Lisa posted long messages about respect and family loyalty. Rachel didn't respond. She simply left the group. Her silence was more powerful than any argument. She was done. I watched my own children, Lisa and Mark, struggle. They were genuinely confused. They couldn't connect their actions, the small daily exclusions, the casual cruelties, to this massive financial and emotional consequence. In their minds, they'd done nothing wrong. That was the heart of the problem. A month passed. The tension didn't ease, it just fossilized. Then Lisa's daughter, Stephanie, was accepted to a fancy out-of-state college. There was to be a big send-off party. Of course, Rachel was not invited, but I was. Lisa called me, her voice sweet. "Dad, we'd love to have you." "Our clubhouse, very nice." I asked, "Is Rachel invited?" There was a long pause. "Dad, after what happened, that would be awkward, don't you think?" I told her I'd think about it. I called Rachel. I told her about the party. She laughed, a real light laugh. "Of course I'm not invited, Uncle Walter, but you should go. She's your granddaughter." I had a different idea. The day of the party arrived. It was at a golf club restaurant. Again, a long table. Again, Lisa and Mark holding court. I arrived alone. They greeted me with relief, thinking I'd chosen their side. The party was in full swing when the door to the private room opened. Everyone turned. It was Rachel. She looked beautiful and completely at ease. A hush fell over the room. Lisa stood up, her face like stone. "What are you doing here?" Rachel smiled. "I'm here with my plus one." She stepped aside. and in walked David, the manager from the Gilded Vine. He was wearing a sharp suit and carried a gift bag. "Hello," he said warmly, shaking my hand. "Walter, good to see you again." Rachel mentioned a celebration. Lisa was speechless. Rachel and David joined me at the table. The air was so thick you could cut it. Turns out, Rachel and David had hit it off after the birthday lunch disaster. They'd gone on a few dates. He was a good man who had seen her character in a moment of crisis. He respected her strength. At the party, they were charming. They talked to other relatives, completely ignoring the icy glare from Lisa. When it came time to open gifts, Stephanie opened Rachel's gift. It was a beautiful, professional quality leather portfolio for her college classes. It was thoughtful, useful, and not overly expensive. It highlighted how every other gift from Lisa's side was flashy and expensive: a new laptop, a giant TV for her dorm. The contrast was clear. One gift was for Stephanie's future, the others were for show. The real moment came when the bill arrived. The waiter placed it in front of Lisa. She opened it and her smile froze. The club had added a mandatory 20% service charge for large parties, plus fees for the room rental. It was another massive bill. Everyone watched as she calculated it. She looked at Mark, who subtly shook his head. They were still recovering from the last credit card hit. Rachel leaned over, her voice just loud enough for the table to hear. "Everything okay, Lisa? Need to check if there's space at the bar?" It was a direct, gentle echo of her own words. Lisa flushed deep red. She had to put the bill on her card again, her hands trembling with anger and embarrassment. Rachel had made her point again without spending a dime or raising her voice. She had simply shown up. After that second party, the power dynamic shifted permanently. Rachel had proven she wasn't hiding. She wasn't ashamed. She had a life, a nice boyfriend, and a spine of steel. The family could no longer pretend she was a pitiful figure. They had to either genuinely make amends or fully acknowledge their hostility. Most chose the latter, but it lost its sting. They stopped talking about her altogether, which was a kind of peace. Rachel finally had the one thing she'd always wanted: freedom from their opinion. She and David grew closer. He introduced her to a world of people who valued kindness and integrity over status and bloodlines. For me, things were harder. My relationship with Lisa and Mark was strained. They blamed me for choosing Rachel. Holidays were quiet. I spent Thanksgiving with Rachel and David at his parents' house. It was warm, loud, and full of genuine welcome. I realized I hadn't felt that at a family event in years. I'd been so busy keeping the peace in my own dysfunctional family that I'd accepted crumbs of connection. Rachel, by refusing to accept crumbs, had shown me I could have a whole meal elsewhere. A year after the infamous lunch, Rachel and David got engaged. They planned a small, intimate wedding at a vineyard. The guest list was tiny: close friends, David's family, and me. She did not invite Lisa, Mark, or any of the cousins who had treated her so poorly. When Lisa found out through the grapevine, she was furious. She called me. "She's not inviting her own family. How could you support that?" I finally said what I should have said years ago. "Lisa, you told her she wasn't family when it mattered. You defined the terms, she's just respecting your definition." The phone call ended with more silence. Rachel's wedding was perfect. Simple, joyful, and filled with real love. There was no drama, no showboating, no one checking the price tags. I gave a speech about how the strongest families aren't always the ones you're born into, but the ones you build through choice and respect. Everyone cheered. Rachel cried happy tears. I saw the woman she had become, confident, loved, and finally at peace. She had taken her power back, piece by piece, starting with a $2,200 bill she never intended to pay. The story, of course, got around the extended family. This time, the sympathy was not with Lisa. People started remembering their own slights, their own moments of being overlooked. Lisa and Mark's social capital in the family dwindled. They became known as the ones who were cruel and got their comeuppance. They stopped hosting big, showy events. The facade was broken. Rachel, meanwhile, thrived. She started her own small design firm and was successful. Every now and then, she'd post a picture online, having dinner with David and me on a vacation happy. She was living her best life, and it was the ultimate, quiet revenge. So that's the story of the $2,200 bill. It's not a story about being mean or getting even in a petty way. It's a story about a woman who finally reached her limit. She realized you can't beg for a seat at a table where people don't value you. Sometimes you have to build your own table. And sometimes you have to hand the bill for their hypocrisy to the people who wrote it. Rachel taught me, and she taught our whole family, that respect is non-negotiable. Love shouldn't have conditions. And if your presence is treated like an option, then your wallet and your energy should be too. She didn't burn bridges, she just calmly walked off the ones that were broken and built stronger ones elsewhere. And in the end, she won everything that mattered: her dignity, her peace, and a life filled with people who actually wanted her at the table. If this story resonated with you, share it. Comment below. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stop asking for a place to sit and start building your own house.